Thank you.
Cool now.
Love that song. Reminds me of wonderful times, and wonderful times right here in a spiritual community that we know that we have each other to lean on, to call on. My friends, that is the power, I believe, of why we exist. But we all have our own whys. Why are we part of a spiritual community? Because I believe we're all immersed in a spiritual laboratory where we need each other, where we learn from each other. And it's not only just coming 1 hour here on Sunday mornings, it's what you do with what you learn during the week, and taking classes and getting involved with prayer chaplains, getting involved with your community, with like-minded people. Because we're always continuing to go up the spiral in consciousness. It doesn't stop at any place. Life is fluid and moving. There's something still in our DNA that thinks that life is static, but in reality, life is continual movement, and nothing is solid. Nothing is what it appears to be. So we need like-minded people to remind us and to lean on when we're not seeing beyond the appearances. Because we create our own heaven and hell by our thinking, by the thoughts we hold in mind. Which reminds me of, you might be familiar with this story of, there was a holy man, and he wanted so much to know what heaven and hell were like. He really had a lot of fear of hell, so he wanted to know. So he prayed and prayed, and he asked God, show me what heaven and hell is like. And so God said, come with me. And he takes him to a place where there are 2 doors. He said, open the first door. So the man opens the door, and there's a round table with a pot of stew in the center, and boy, did it smell good. And all the people around that were sitting were starving, sickly, famine. It was like, and they all had these long spoons attached to their arms, strapped to their arms. And he couldn't understand anything why they looked that way. Why were they starving? So God says, okay, come with me. I'll show you heaven. That was hell. Come with me. And he opens the other door. And the same scenario. A round table, a pot of stew that smelled as delicious as the other one, with people sitting around. But these people were healthy and laughing, and they were having a good time. And they had the spoon strapped to their arms, and they were happy. So the holy man says, I don't understand. How is this possible? It's the same thing, but those are starving and they're sick, and these are healthy and having a good time. And God said, well, the difference is, see, the ones in heaven learned to feed each other. Because the ones in hell couldn't eat because the spoon was longer than the arm, so they couldn't take the spoon to their mouth. So they were starving, and they were fighting with each other. They were even beating themselves up with the spoons because they couldn't eat. But the ones in heaven learned to feed each other. And in reality, when we feed each other, we are only feeding the one. Because there's only one, not 2. One presence, one power in the entire universe, appearing as the many. All of us make up the body of Christ, each with our own unique talents and gifts. And that, my friends, is why I believe we exist. But I want to ask you, what is your why? What is your why? What makes you come here on Sunday morning? And ask yourself, just be with that. What is my why? What is my purpose? And maybe it is that you want to get clearer on what your purpose is. And that's part of the laboratory. Because it's all in consciousness. We are divine ideas in this immense mind of God in consciousness. Now, there are stages to this consciousness. all existing uniquely. But it is the one. No separation. Even quantum physics tells you there's no beginning and no end to who we are. So do not be fooled by your senses. The senses see limitation. The senses see this and that. But we can begin to see beyond the senses, and we can begin to open our hearts to live wholeheartedly here now, with an open heart that can see and embrace with spiritual understanding. Einstein said a human being is part of the whole called by us universe. He experiences himself, his thoughts, and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. And then he goes on to say, this delusion is a kind of prison to us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. To widen our circle of compassion, to embrace all, so that we can liberate ourselves from the prison of our own making. Now, what is it that we need in order to do that? And I was sitting with that. Well, I think we need understanding and we need skills so that we can begin to listen to each other and even listen to each other's pain and just be there. Everyone needs to be heard, to have a presence of someone that says, I see you, I hear you, you belong. And learning the skills so that we can free ourselves from very violent ways of communication by embracing non-violent communication skills so that we can speak from our own needs and then we can see what somebody else is needing. Because again, it's one consciousness but many levels of consciousness. And I want to speak briefly today about the maps of consciousness because there are people researching maps of consciousness. And you might be familiar with spiral dynamics, and I want to talk a little bit of, just so that you have a glimpse of the different consciousness, because the Bible can be read from these states of consciousness too. And it was Don Beck that actually wrote a book and color-coded these states of consciousness, which are memes that are formed, the ideas that certain groups share together culturally. What I want to make clear is that all of these states of consciousness exist in each and every one of us. So during one day, you can have many states of consciousness. The first one is the beige, which is the Stone Age. It goes back to the Stone Age, and we still have a lizard brain in us, We do, and the Stone Age is really about our survival. When something threatens our survival, that's our first chakra. We have that. So you can see when somebody is there in that state of consciousness. The next one, we're seeing that a lot in our country. It's the tribal magical thinking. It's the magical thinking, and I can say, here, scientists are saying this. These are the facts. Oh no, I don't believe that. So we have that consciousness going on too. And we all have those things in us too. I remember it took me forever to break free from, because I learned this. When I went by a cemetery, I was taught as a child I had to do this. So if I did not do this, when I went by a cemetery, I felt really guilty. And I didn't even know why I was doing that when I went by a cemetery. So there's things that we learn and we just do because we learn from our parents and culturally and so forth, and we just do it automatically. But then, we go up the spiral in consciousness, and then there's the red, which is the explosive God, the angry God in the Bible. And you could see that anger, even in our country. That's happening too. Then there's blue, which is a more authoritarian, corporations, bureaucracy, and so forth. But it goes on. And all those levels exist in us. And the next is the orange one consciousness, which is, entrepreneurial, and it's kind of like, what's in it for me, and taking our power. Then the green, and this is interesting. I'm going to stop a little more on the green, because for a long time, the unity movement was seen as a green. As a green, because it was a touchy feeling. It was very touchy feeling, and I care, and so forth. But now it's evolving, and evolved more to the yellow, which is the ability to hear, to appreciate other ideas. It goes up in consciousness. Everybody contributes. So I believe as a movement, we've moved from the green to the yellow. And at the same time, is transcend and include. So we include and transcend. Nothing is left behind. They're all in us. So then we move to, I think I missed the orange. No, I got the orange, the yellow. Okay, the orange, the green, the yellow. Yeah, sorry. And then the turquoise. This is what really, really I'm passionate about. And this is the awakened community. This is the community it's integral, it's holistic. It's what can be an awakened community that is present in the here and now, wholeheartedly, listening to each other, that embraces all polarities, that can listen without judgment, that knows that they're more than their thinking mind, that can be there compassionately for each other. And this is probably one of the highest means. There's others that are kind of coming up, but this is probably the meme that can transform the world. And this is what I'm going to invite us all to hold as a vision of what is possible, and to strive to live more from this awareness, from the awareness that I can be here with an open heart, living wholeheartedly, living in the present moment where I can listen to wherever is arising and in the field without making it right or wrong or this or that. And then with a clear mind, I know what's mine to do. Because it's not only about prayer, it's prayer and action, but that every action that we take comes from the clearest mind. So what are we putting out in the field? Because there is a unified field that we're continually to put things out. What are we putting out in the field? That we can stand totally here now as our divine self, as our awakened self. So I'm going to invite us right now. If you're with me, are you ready to take that leap up the spiral in consciousness and awaken to this mean of really living from your higher self, from your divine essence? And in reality, it's just wholeheartedly being aware, paying attention to the different states of consciousness without making anything right or wrong, but more listening to each other so that we can see what the needs are. This is what this is about, listening to what everybody is needing and expressing themselves from wherever they are in consciousness, because there's many states of consciousness, and being compassionate with yourself even when you find yourself in the tribal thinking or the survival thinking, because it's all in us. Can we do that? Okay. I am awakened to my divine essence. Let's say that together. I am awakened to my divine essence. I live here now in the moment. And now you don't have to affirm this with me, but I live here now in the moment, aware with an open heart, awakening these gifts that I have in me, spiritual understanding, wisdom. And I am willing to listen. I am willing to pay attention. I am willing to open my heart. And I am willing to see beyond appearances in the awareness that it is the one appearing as the many. We are one family. One family appearing as many uniquely. And then we open ourselves to have that faith that can transform appearances, because that's what we are aware of, that it is all appearances, and I can have a different vision of what is possible. That, my friends, is what I believe we're being called as a spiritual community, to be such a vortex of light that will change the world. And it has to begin in each and every one of our hearts. And do so joyously. Because you can't help but do so. Because when you give to yourself. And we're all in this together. In this giving and receiving and being in that space of gratitude. Of being grateful every moment for whatever arises. Because every moment there is an opportunity to see things differently. To make a choice. Do I want to be in hell or do I want to be in heaven? And I don't know about you, but I choose to see things right. I choose to be aligned with who I am.